I am so grateful to have overcome devastating challenges over my lifetime. It's for this reason that I am passionate and obligated to share my faith, my hope, and my life. My faith is in God, my hope is in His promises, and my life is for this purpose. I am Yvonne Roundtree, and this is Everyday Matters. Susan Lau is here, and we're going to discuss how social emotional learning is addressing the issue of bullying.
So we saw Columbine happen for children that had been bullied for a long time, and adults hadn't really been aware of it, began to strike out and
pushed over the edge.
Right, pushed over the edge, began to kill each other, hurt each other, and this began happening in a number of schools. We saw bullying escalate, and it's still escalating today. And as I said, depression was becoming more of a problem, and mental illnesses among children were becoming more recognized. So really our children were crying out to us and saying they needed help. Mm-hmm. And so people in education and people in mental health and other venues began to realize that we needed to do something important to help children. So as I said, people were really seeing that children needed help. And in Illinois, a group of educators, mental health professionals, and other organizations, people that work with children. So we began to do some work around identifying what could help children and looking at social and emotional learning skills, which if we teach children those kinds of skills, we find that it prevents at-risk behaviors among children. So in the early 2000s, people began to put together what are called social and emotional learning standards for education, which means that teachers and educators, administrators, are now in the state of Illinois required to teach social and emotional learning skills to children. And when we think about what are those skills, they're skills that help children learn to identify their emotions, to process their emotions, so that they don't act out in risky behaviors. They learn communication skills, listening skills, confrontation, de-escalation, so that they don't have conflict with their peers and conflict with their teachers and other adults, so that we find that in the classroom there's less disruption going on, so there's more time attended to academics because children have processed some of the stress in their lives and the conflict in their lives, and they're better able to attend to what they need to be successful in school and in life. They also learn how to make decisions and how to set goals for themselves. So there are entire curriculums based on that. So Illinois took a really important step, and what this group of task force did under the Illinois Children's Mental Health Partnership was to put in place standards, as I said, for teaching these skills to children. So around 2003, the Children's Mental Health Act of Illinois was passed, and under that act, these standards were developed. And then around 2006, schools had to write a policy for teaching social and emotional learning skills to children, and they are required to do that today. And then in 2007, the state of Illinois developed a grant that was given to schools in Chicago and throughout the state in order to have training and coaching so that they could learn, the adults in the school could learn how to model the SEL skills for children and to teach the skills. Because we find that when we teach the skills and that's all we do, It's kind of a rote sort of learning, and what we really need to do is adults have to model the skills for children.
Because that's how they learn, from
Yes.
their family members and the environment that they're in. So that makes sense.
Exactly, Yvonne, and that's just how our brains work, especially in the social and emotional realm, that they need to really see that behavior modeled. And so really good teachers know how to do that. Some teachers are naturals at it, but a lot of us have to learn that. You know, and we oftentimes when we grew up, we didn't learn those skills in an intentional way. It was kind of just that, you know, if you were lucky, you picked it up from your parents, and if you weren't, you didn't. And, you know, you kind of stumbled along and learned things as you went along, but maybe not the best kinds of behaviors.
Yes.
And so, I mean, I even found in my adult life, I still needed to work at times with a therapist even to help me overcome some of the conflict and the dysfunctional behaviors that I had picked up.
Yes.
So we're trying to prevent kids from having to do that much, you know, and to teach them the skills from kindergarten through grade 12 so that they come out with some advantages and really being able to deal with a much more complex society than that we've had to deal with.
We'll be right back after this break. Stay with us.
I will knock you into next week. Stop. Get me! I'm done!
This is embarrassing.
That's it! We're leaving.
Stop it.
Get on. Susanna, I said we're leaving. Keep your mouth shut.
Guys, look, it's Little Red Riding Hood. Oh, her hair's on fire. Better call 911. Loser. Oh, there she goes again. Better watch out for the big bad wolf.
One of the things I was going to say is just actually SEL is coping skills.
Right.
And because when you talked about the natural process of us learning these things as we're growing up, and the lack of it, you know, it should be incorporated. It should be incorporated into our everyday life and applied to our everyday issues. But for some reason, like you said, that we have a gap and absence of this being taught, and as a result of it. So what we're seeing now is that because of the culture that we're in with our youth, all of the violence and the disruption in their education, now we see a lot of alternative schools and just charter schools and different ways of getting education now more than ever because of the lack of the social skills that they learn, or we've learned, as you say, because we have often had to use therapists to work through our issues because we didn't properly process things. And
You're so right about the coping skills. I mean, and that's what we call them, really. It's good mental health. The definitions of mental health and social and emotional learning are very similar. In fact, if you don't mind, I'll just read the actual definition of social and emotional learning. SEL is the process of acquiring the skills to recognize and manage emotions, develop caring and concern for others, establish positive relationships, make responsible decisions, and handle challenging tasks effectively. And that was from CASEL, the Collaborative for Academic and Social and Emotional Learning. And so the definition of mental health is that it is the successful performance of mental function resulting in productive activities, fulfilling relationships with other people, and the ability to adapt to change and to cope with adversity. So there's that word again, coping. And we talk about how to cope with stress, and the different steps that children can go through to process stress, and how to take action steps in dealing with a problem, how to break it down into individual steps where they can identify different outcomes by taking different steps, and how that's going to affect other people and how it's going to affect them, whether they might lose respect for other people, or other people might lose respect for them, or they might lose respect for themselves by the actions that they take. So ethics is a big piece of it too. I was just going to refer a little bit to a very nice chart that Castle put together about social and emotional learning skills, just to kind of categorize some of those skills.
Okay.
The first group of skills really deals with ourselves. So self-awareness is the first kind of group of those SEL skills, and that's recognizing your own emotions and values as well as your own limits and your strengths, and who you are as a person. Negative things do happen to everyone.
Yes, they do.
Another SEL skill is self-management. So being able to manage our emotions and behaviors in order to achieve our goals ultimately, to make a difference in our lives, and that's what we all want to do. We all want to be able to achieve something and realize our goals. And then several of the other skills deal with other people in our lives. Social awareness is really showing understanding and empathy for others. And the curriculums that deal with SEL start out with empathy. And that's a skill that we can actually learn about empathy for other people. It's like you either have that or you don't, But it is something that research shows can be taught. And research shows that all these skills can be taught. And then relationship skills, forming positive relationships, being able to work in teams, and being able to deal effectively with conflict. So that's dealing in our relationships with others with some very, tricky things that we have to deal with. And especially when we're out working, we want to prepare kids now. The Common Core standards are to prepare kids for college and for achievement in the workplace. And so we want to be sure that children are able to work in teams, to facilitate group work, to be able to give and take and share when they're working. Because as we all know, a lot of us, leave jobs not because we can't do the job or the technical skill, but because of interpersonal relationships that maybe keep us from doing our job or keep us from meeting our goals. So we want to teach kids how to cope with that. And the 21st century skills, this was a study that was done called the 21st Century Study, which a lot of adults were surveyed about what are the skills that we want our children to know in the 21st century. And it turned out they listed a lot of skills, and they all turned out to be SEL skills and teamwork, those kinds of skills that we need in the workplace.
So we're right on point.
Yeah, this is really something that research has shown is not an add-on, it's not the fluff, it's not the extra, it's the core of what we need to be teaching our students.
And when I'm listening to you, that's what I hear. This is the core. It is actually the resolve to all of the dilemmas that we see in society.
It is.
It's the resolve.
It gives me chills to think about it when you say that.
It sounds so simple.
Yeah.
But yet it's so complex because, like
it
you're
is
saying,
complex.
if it's not intentionally taught, then it's missing, and then you get all of the other
It's the hardest thing to do. I mean, we can learn to do a lot of skills and a lot of technical things, but the hardest things are the people relationships and to make those successful. And if you're married, if you're a mother, just any relationships that you have, that's true.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Domestic violence is not patient.
You expect me to eat this slop? There, how about that?
Domestic violence is not kind.
Back, Cal.
What'd you say?
Do you think you could try to make yourself look halfway decent?
Domestic violence demands its own way.
If I ever see you with those women again, I won't just twist your arm, I'll break it.
Is this how you want to love your family? Love is a choice. Call now and choose to change.
So the last, or the fifth of the SEL skills that we try to teach children is responsible decision making. And that's all about making constructive, ethical choices about personal and social behaviors. So if we look at the economy over the past several years, what happened? You know, a lot of people didn't make ethical decisions, and the entire economy melted down because of it, not just on the U.S., but globally. So, and every job, there's ethics attached to every job, and we need to make sure that kids realize that and that that's important to them, what's right from wrong. So to be able to teach those things. So how do we get kids to acquire these skills? Like we said, modeling, teaching the lessons, giving them practice, letting them do role plays, having them do journaling. These are some of the activities that help build the skills and build the memory of the skills internally, so that we're able to call them up when we really need those skills in the moment. And even giving kids practice in the moment, on the playground, in the cafeteria, making those situations where adults are modeling the skills and working. As an example with bullying, adults need to really make sure that they model the skills by not letting bullying situations kind of happen under the radar. We're all really busy, and it's easier just to kind of ignore those situations or maybe deal with it in a cursory way. But that's not really teaching children how to intervene in a bullying situation. We need to model that skill.
Give us an example.
Well, when kids are, say, in a group, and one kid starts, bullying another kid, we're finding that it's really important that children feel empowered to become allies in that situation, to stand up to the bully, or to go and seek an adult to come and help with the situation, or to be able to call on their peers standing around them to really stop the situation.
To advocate.
To advocate,
Not
right.
to come in and help them to fight the bully, but actually maybe in a sense where if someone was arguing with them, accusing them or something to that effect, then calling in their peers maybe to speak on their behalf in their defense of the accusation.
So with bullying as the ally, a child might say, use some of the things they've learned in their activities and lessons, saying, that's bullying. We don't do that here at this school. And that then allows other kids to think, well, maybe we should intervene. And 2 teachers in DeKalb elementary schools did some research and surveys with students, and they found out that the number one thing to make children feel empowered enough to be an ally in a bullying situation is that they have a relationship with at least one adult in the school building that they trust and feel close to. And teaching these social emotional learning skills builds the relationships with the adults in the building. That's the whole core of teaching SEL skills. It's all about relationship building, so that the students feel like there are caring, supportive adults in their camp at school who they can rely on, and it's a safe place to be. And then the relationships between the peers become improved as the kids have these skills. We found in Chicago schools over the last 4 years, I worked with about 20 different schools, elementary K through 12, and we found that every year CPS does the My School, My Voice survey of students, and it's an attitude survey on school climate. We found after 2 years of teaching the SEL skills to students that the relationships, the link between teachers and students was strengthened significantly. And that's really the first thing that happens. It's that adult-child relationship begins to strengthen, and students feel more connected to school. And then after that, the peer-to-peer relationships begin to improve. And what we see is the more severe infractions that are happening, the physical fighting and bullying, those begin to diminish, and maybe the infractions fall into the less serious categories. Maybe there's still a number of infractions, but they're in the less serious categories. So those are the first inklings that we get that things are beginning to change, but it usually takes 3 to 5 years.
You'd be surprised that when students come to us, how they don't know how to have relationships. They don't know how they operate. They don't know how they're supposed to relate to adults. as you said,
Right.
or to each other. And so now we want to know, as parents, how do we teach our children? And is there ever a time when, if we didn't teach them when they were younger, how do we teach them as teenagers?
Exactly, that's so important. And we find that parents are a huge key to making this work. So parents can do a number of things to reinforce what's happening at school. Teachers can send home homework that the parents can work with the students on in terms of building relationships and identifying skills. Initially, we want to let parents know what SEL is, like I've talked about before. So the Illinois Children's Mental Health Partnership put together a really nice brochure called Raising Caring, Confident, Capable Children.
Yes, I love that one. That's one of my favorites.
And it gives the 5 skills, it tells what they are, and then it has a parent contract in which there are 10 different things that parents can do to really help their kids learn the skills and to model the skills for them. So I'd kind of like to just go through each one if it's okay. The contract says that I promise as a parent to, number 1, focus on strengths, so that when my children bring home a test and maybe they haven't done so well on that test, we don't immediately begin to talk about how negative how badly they've done on the test, but look at some of the things that they did that were positive, you know, and some of the strengths that they had, and then engage the child in saying, now what would you like to improve on this? You know, is there anything particularly, and not just criticize what was wrong.
Yes.
Another thing is you can follow up with fair consequences for misbehavior. Sometimes, and I did this with my sons, I thought, you know, the more the better. You know, if they've done something wrong, then I should take TV away for a month. Well, that sure didn't work because it just wasn't going to last, you know, from my standpoint as well as theirs.
Yes.
So consequences have to be realistic.
Realistic. Yes.
And
That's a big one for us as parents.
yeah,
Making the
yeah,
consequences realistic, because we're so quick to say something just out of reaction,
right.
knowing good and well, you know, who's going to watch them not do
Right,
all these
exactly.
things? As soon as you turn your back, they're going to do it.
Right, how are we going to carry that out?
Right.
And it's not going to be meaningful anyway. By the time a month's gone by, the child's forgotten what they've done.
Right.
You know, that was, and come up with something else.
Exactly.
So another way to deal with that is to engage the child in actually talking about what they did wrong, what they might do better next time, and how to do it better next time, and going through those kinds of steps that SEL teaches, and engaging them in actually what kind of consequences they should have.
Okay, Sue, we are running out of time this time, but Sue will be back to help us to incorporate this initiative into our everyday life. And Sue will be available through email so that she can answer any questions for you, address anything that you may have her to address for you personally. And we thank you for joining us, and remember that every day matters.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Don't moan. Listen, Mary. Tell your sister to don't moan. Pharaoh's Jesus said, Mary, Mary, don't weep. Don't weep. Tell your sister not to mourn. Don't mourn. Don't mourn. We're gonna review the story of two sisters called Mary and Martha. They had a brother named Lazarus. One day while Jesus was away, that dear brother died. Yeah, yeah. But now Mary went running to Jesus. She said, Master, sweet Lord. Oh Lord, if you had have been here, my brother wouldn't have died. Oh yes, she did. Jesus said, come on and show me where you buried him. Show me where you laid him down. And when he got there,
Join Everyday Matters discussions. Share your reviews, comments, and questions. Go to Everyday Matters TV at googlegroups.com and join us today. The choices that you make today will determine the life that you live tomorrow. Everyday Matters.